Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. We watched some more football today. Had a crazy, exciting, point-filled NFL weekend. And the best part of it all is the Packers won.
Yeah, I mean, a crazy weekend for football. And, probably one of the crazier games of the weekend was this Packers-Saints game, the home opener for Green Bay. To be down. If you haven't seen this game yet, I'm not going to spoil it for you. Go back and watch it, because this is a classic, and watch it all the way to the end, because I know there were times that I'm sure a lot of people were thinking...
If you haven't seen this game yet, why are you listening to our post-game show?
Yeah, but I know there were times where a lot of people probably...
Get with game plan.
A lot of people probably wanted to turn it off, but... Watch it all the way to the end. I promise you'll be rewarded. But, all right, start it up again. We're going to spoil it now. Packers win 18-17, coming back from 17-0 in the fourth quarter. Jordan Love leads 3 consecutive scoring drives. Matt LaFleur makes some great decisions, great play calls. It's a great game. Packers are 2-1. They're on top of the NFC North. They're 4th in the NFC overall in the conference. Things are going well for the Packers, Dad. We're going to talk about it all today. We're going to break it all down, what we liked on offense, what we didn't like on offense, what we liked on defense, what we didn't like on defense, what we didn't like on special teams. Notice how that one's
plus
a little different than those.
Plus what we didn't like on special teams.
Yeah. But yeah, so we got a lot to talk about. We're really excited to talk about it. Before we do, though, just wanted to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you hear here today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out when we have new episodes, articles we find interesting, pieces of news, pretty much everything you need to know that's going around Titletown. And then if you like us even more, come subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We even put all our episodes out on YouTube. And if you subscribe to us there, it would really help our numbers in the algorithm, so we'd really appreciate it. But, Dad, should we get into talking about this game? We got a lot to talk about. And let's start with the injury report, because Packers going into this game, a lot of injuries, some we didn't even know about when we did our pregame on Thursday. And coming out of this game, some more injuries on top of that, Dad. You want to run us through it real quick?
Yeah, so basically almost everybody we were hoping would play didn't. No Bakhtiari.
And then more. And then more on top of that.
No, right. So, but as of Thursday, there's like, okay, these are the ones who are limited. Then added on Friday that Jair was limited and questionable. So questionable, no Bakhtiari, no Aaron Jones, no Christian Watson, no Jair Alexander, no Alton Jenkins. So missing starting left tackle, starting left guard, 2 best offensive linemen, running back 1, wide receiver 1, cornerback 1, all out. Despite what we were hoping, and maybe whether the reasons were because of the short week coming up next week, supposedly not. But that wasn't it. So those are the players who were out from the beginning of the game. But wait, there's more. During the game, we also lost starting linebacker Devondre Campbell before halftime, even, so we lost him for half the game. Valentine, he had a biceps injury and so he missed the whole second half. He was a replacement for cornerback 1, so he was gone for half of the game. And then at the very end, Zach Tom supposedly injured a knee and only missed a couple of the kneel down plays, and that seems like something that maybe he's not going to miss much time. That he avoided something serious.
Hopefully, knock on wood.
Matt LaFleur. Hopefully, knock on wood.
But yeah,
and so that was what we ended up with for this game. And the number of you mentioned what percent of the salary cap they missed for this game?
Yeah, Ken Ingalls had it. 52% of the salary cap was unavailable for this game, which is just crazy that they were able to pull off this win with all of those injuries we talked about. Your entire left half of the line, your best weapons, not there. Your best corners, not there against a team with some great receivers. Rashan Gary on a pitch count. That was 52% either unavailable or on a pitch count was what it was. So it was including Gary as well. But yeah, so many pieces missing for this team, which is why it feels like an even gutsier win. And a lot of those are going to be ones we need to keep our eye on for Thursday. And we're going to be doing way more in-depth dive into the injury report when we do our pregame on Wednesday for this upcoming game. For now, there's not a whole lot of news on these players. The question is like, all right, did they hold him out of this game because they knew they had a short week against a divisional opponent, which is a really important game? Matt LaFleur said that's not the case, but we know that could always just be a bit of gamesmanship. It's going to be something to keep an eye on, but stick with us and we'll keep you up to date going forward. But Dad, let's get into this game breakdown, and let's start with the biggest moment of the game. And what we do here is we go based on ESPN win probability, what changed the game the most. And the honorable mention is the second touchdown that took the odds from a 72.4% chance of New Orleans winning to a 65.4% chance of Green Bay winning with a swing of 37%. That was a huge play in the game, obviously. But the biggest moment of the game, Dad, was the missed field goal at the end by Blake Grupe, rookie kicker for the Saints, which changed the odds from a 53.3% chance of winning for New Orleans to a 99.99999% chance of winning for Green Bay. A change of 53.2%. And that was the game right there. It was 18-17. He had a kick to win the game, and 46 yards, pushed it wide right. Thank goodness. Because, like you were saying, it was a little scary there for a second.
After just watching him come down the field, I was thinking, okay, they're going to end up close in almost felt like seconds. They're already in field goal range. It's like, okay, we're going to have to try to do one more hurry up offense drive to win the game after they take the lead back from us again. And then when he missed, I didn't have to sweat it out anymore. I could just relax, enjoy the whole rest of the day, and say, this was a fantastic comeback. This is a glorious, beautiful game.
And I think, if they had to make the comeback, I would have definitely needed like a long rest after that game, a long nap after that game. I don't think it's safe to have your heart rate elevated for quite that long. But Dad, those are the moments of the game.
Austin Powers after a photo session, and I'm spent.
I got nothing left. Check, please.
Check, please.
But anyway, let's move on to talking about some sides of the ball in this game, some good stuff, some bad stuff. And Dad, let's start with the offense. I think we have a lot to talk about here. I don't have quite as much to say about the defense, but I got some positives. I got some negatives for the offense. If you don't mind, I'll start us off with what I think was the biggest positive of the game, and in a lot of places, the biggest story of the game, which was going for 2 down 14, which is just the smart thing to do. The math tells you to do it. Number one, that's an excellent play by Love in that situation. He kind of creates off script, moves forward in the pocket, avoids the rush, and hits Toure to the left when kind of Lattimore essentially like falls asleep for a second. I don't really know what happened there to him, but we're not going to worry about it. But Dad, going for 2 down 14 is just such a great example of Matt LaFleur as a head coach and decision maker, giving his team a better chance to win by just understanding the math of the situation, number one, and number two, having the courage to risk essentially this is the right decision. But if it doesn't go well, you as the head coach are taking on essentially the sole brunt and weight of all criticism coming out of this game.
Football industrial complex is coming for you.
Yes.
So it took stones to do what is the smart thing in this case, because the number it's actually pretty basic probability of what is more likely to work.
And when you see coaches on the other side of the spectrum, like how the Raiders game ended for them, where they kicked a field goal down 8,
an idiot!
And their coach essentially takes away a chance for them to stay in that game. It really helps you appreciate that LaFleur essentially said, I'm going to take all the risk here. I'm shouldering all this responsibility that I know if this doesn't go well, I'm going to be heavily criticized. But going for 2 here is the right decision. And the reason it's the right decision, like you were saying, Dad, is essentially the idea is you have about a 50-50% chance of converting a 2-point conversion these days. So the odds of you completing at least one of the conversions is pretty good. So if you miss the first, you should feel pretty good about getting the second statistically, and that would tie the game. But if you get the first one, it results in the situation that played out today where you get the win. And
you increase your chance of 3. So your ability to get 2 points is about the same with 2 extra points versus 2 2-point conversions.
Yes.
But if you get the first one of the 2 2-point conversions, now you have more control over the outcome of the game. And then you
Exactly.
don't have to. You can do 1 2-point conversion and 1 extra point.
And the other thing that comes up is the idea that you never want to go to overtime. Overtime is bad. Overtime is essentially lending your results to the flip of a coin, because the team that wins the coin toss almost always wins. And so you want to try and win in regulation no matter what. So based on the fact that, 2 extra points, like the odds of getting at least one of those is the same as making those 2 extra points. The fact that getting the first one is going to essentially lead to a win like it did in this scenario. The fact that you want to avoid overtime. Matt LaFleur essentially made the correct decision there, and it's what a lot of people on ESPN are talking about. It's what a lot of people are talking about. This is the kind of decision that if it goes poorly, it's running the whole morning segment about how analytics are ruining the game and Matt LaFleur overthought it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I do feel like while it has gotten some attention, it has not gotten enough attention. I feel like analytics never gets credit when it works. It only gets just like torn to shreds when it doesn't. And I think we need to give
There was a whole article on ESPN.com today about the math behind it. And running through the probability of winning and your chance of winning when you... I think that article was from today. Anyway, I found it today.
But yeah, and I've definitely seen some people talk about it, and I think that's just like a good sign for where people are going with their understanding of the game. Because I was in like a message board with some other Packers fans, and people were like, why are you going for 2? Why are you going for 2? And it's like, no, trust. This is the right decision. It's very scary. It's very scary as a fan. I'm sure it's very scary for a lot of people. Doesn't make it not the right decision. And that was the first thing that I wanted to highlight on Offense Dad of a positive here. Do you want to lead off?
It's not 100% that you're going to get 2 points if you kick 2 extra points.
No, it's not. Especially with what we've seen out of the Packers special teams recently. Not recently.
And I think that's something that people haven't let go of yet. They essentially assume that it's a guarantee they'll get both of those extra points. And it's more like 90% you'll get them both, get 2 of them. It's not 100.
Yeah.
And it kind of depends how good your kicker is.
And yes, and we saw today, rookie kickers, things become volatile with them. And Groupie for the Saints had a very nice start to his career, but it's a lot of pressure in those types of situations. And we saw Anders Carlson make the extra point that gave them the lead, which was a pretty high leverage extra point. I don't know if you saw, but the Saints tried to block it with the long snapper's towel. Did you see this?
No, I missed this.
The Saints ripped the Packers, Matt Orzech's long snapper's towel out from the back of his pants and tried to throw it in the air to knock the ball out of the air. I'm pretty sure it's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty or some kind of something. But yes, but they tried to do
more
it.
On Carlson's first kick of the day, that field goal
was a little tight, huh?
Is that slicing wide right? But then it hooked in because this is like
he normally doesn't
that
hook.
Post.
It feels like. Yeah,
and
he normally doesn't hook it like that. It feels like at all.
Yeah. So it ended up with plenty of room to spare, but at the start it's like, because at that point you don't know if it's going to slice or if it's going to hook, and it didn't have to slice much to miss.
But yeah, that was the first positive I wanted to talk about for this game, though, was that 2-point conversion. Dad, what was the first positive that you wanted to talk about on offense for the Packers in this game?
Mine are not as extensive as yours. And I'll just start with one of the things that I have that ties directly to you is like Love's throw for that 2-point conversion was almost his most impressive play to me, and maybe one of the best of his career. The way that he runs and kind of goes off script a little bit. I think they actually had a mistiming on some of the motion, keeping his eyes up. And the speed with which he switches from running to throwing it on target, where he makes a decision and all of a sudden just rips it really quickly over to Toure to hit him when he was open. It was just so fast and fluid. The change from running and scrambling to throwing it that I was really impressed with.
Yeah, I mean, I just barely touched on it, but like you said, I think one of the most impressive plays from him on the day. I think in a day that, he struggled to start the game, I think it's fair to say the offense did him no favors in terms of penalties, et cetera, which we'll talk about. But that play, a couple of the runs he made, I mean, just some high-level flashes that
Oh yeah,
when you add them together, yeah, the couple of the runs were pretty sick, which I think would be
some nice running ability these last couple weeks.
I mean, do you want to talk about the fourth and goal touchdown, but right before the 2-point conversion? He makes that look way easier than it is. That was not easy. He made like multiple time Pro Bowler and one of the best linebackers in the league, Demario Davis, miss in the hole. That's really hard.
Yeah,
running backs don't do that.
One in the hole, and he does cuts right around him.
He practically didn't get touched by him.
Does he go untouched?
No, he gets hit a little bit, but he practically makes him miss entirely. And
his read was exactly correct because the handoff up the middle was dead.
The thing is, Ryan Clark was talking about was hand up the middle. You're reading Cameron Jordan, future Hall of Famer. He bites in. You go around, you're meeting Demario Davis, like borderline Hall of Fame type, like quality player. He's not as much of a household name, so I don't know if he'll make it, but like that level of player. And you make him look silly in the hole on a 4th down where you got to have it. And you end up winning the game because of it. I mean, that's crazy. He made some high level plays in this game. But Dad, that's actually one of my positives that I'll just dive into right now is Jordan Love's mobility today. He was their leading rusher on the day, 9 carries for 39 yards. He was pressured 11 times, but only sacked once, and had multiple huge runs in this game. Like we were just talking about, that 4th and goal for the first touchdown of the game for the Packers. The 24-yarder up the left sideline on the game-winning drive was a massive play.
Bounds. And
stays in bounds.
When he gets the edge on the rusher there, it doesn't look like he's quite got the angle, and he just beats him with enough speed to get all the way around him untouched, and then use Dobbs's block, I think it was, to gain even more yards as he just tight ropes down the sideline.
The thing is, I would say, like, going into this season, I was like, yeah, Love's like a good athlete, but he's not like a great athlete. I thought he was like a plus athlete, but nothing super. He has shown, I think, more with his legs these 3 weeks than I had thought he was capable of. Like, he can scoot a little bit. And I think the first one that really opened my eyes...
And he's been aggressive.
Yes. The first one that really opened my eyes was the run against Atlanta last week, where he's just like, he smokes an end, like, to the corner.
And
like,
then he cuts back inside, and then he goes around the edge, and then he cuts back inside.
Hey, that cut back inside was the exact move he put on Demario Davis. It was exactly the same one where he just, the hard plant on the right leg and cut inside. Didn't get it versus Atlanta. Got it versus New Orleans when it mattered more, so we'll take it. But yeah, that was my next positive on the day, was Love's mobility. I mean, I know that Alontae Taylor got him for the sack from the slot blitz, but the one right before that, he spins out of essentially that same unblocked blitz and gets away from it, and I think he scrambled for like a few yard gain on that one. But yeah, turning negative plays.
Yeah, that might have been like a 5 yard gain on that when it should have been a 5 yard loss.
I think it was, but yeah, turning
something like that,
obvious negative plays into even small positives is awesome, and that's the kind of mobility that I think we talked about a little bit in our lead up to this season, where it's like, oh, like Love's mobility is going to be a big thing, because even though I didn't consider him to be like super hyper mobile, I was like, it's more than we've had. And we talked about how expected points added from scrambles are way higher than a standard drop back would be, than in terms of a pass attempt would be, I should say. But I mean, it's been great so far to see him be able to get out and move, be able to move in the pocket, move out of the pocket. He's not getting like scared to stay in the pocket either. He's not abandoning it too early. It feels like the timing and the rhythm are all there. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the mobility for him because it's looked great. Dad, what was your next positive for the offense? Because we got a lot to talk about here. We could even go to negatives and come back to positives. I don't know. Take us wherever you want to go.
So, I want to talk more about sort of the flow and structure of the fourth quarter. In order to make the comeback, their 3 scoring drives to take the lead in the fourth quarter. They got a field goal in 1:54, a touchdown in 1:21, and another touchdown in 2 minutes and 27 seconds on offense.
Yeah.
So their ability to kind of run hurry up and put up, I guess it was 18 points in 7 minutes of game time-ish, was really impressive. And that's what I thought. And so the ability to kind of stay composed, stay on schedule, move the ball in a hurry, and put points on the board when they were running out of time was really impressive.
Yeah, really impressive. I have a question. What do you think, because I was having this discussion with someone, on the drive where they fail the 4th and goal to Patrick Taylor at the start of the 4th quarter, do you think they should have kicked a field goal? Because
I did in hindsight.
Well, yes, okay,
because they were down
at the time.
Because
they were down 3 scores. A field goal cuts it to 2 scores.
So a field goal helped them. It wasn't 3 touchdowns.
And that was my thought, was like, you cut it to 2 scores here. Does that make more sense than going for a touchdown? I need to look at the actual numbers themselves, but that was like my thought, and I was wondering if you had an opinion on that.
I think in the moment, I was like, they should probably kick the field goal and get it down to 2 scores. The field goal, because I was like, the field goal actually has value in this scenario of where you are in the game, and you may only get 2 more possessions. That was the other thing at the time. It's like, okay, we're already into the 4th quarter. You may only get the ball 2 more times. Now, there is maybe a little bit at play when you get so deep into the opposing territory. Does your probability of scoring a touchdown go up high enough where you take the chance? If you're further back, getting that first down doesn't necessarily guarantee you're getting a touchdown out of it. But when you get that close, your probability of getting a touchdown, if you get the first down, or even on that play, is higher. And so that is something I didn't look into the details, but in the moment, I was like, maybe they should have
and it's always, I'm trying not to have it just be a hindsight is 2020 type thing, where I was like, at the time I was like, should they kick the field? And I was like, is that pro analytics or anti analytics to just cut it to 2 scores here? I was like, I can't tell which is the math play here. But anyway, that was just my thought.
I think the math play is more than I had researched. Is basically probably your probability of getting a touchdown if you get a first down that close to the end zone.
Yeah, and with the probability of you getting the first down is also important to keep in mind there as well.
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
And tacking on to the fact that the probability of just getting into field goal range on a later drive as opposed to needing a touchdown on a later drive, because that's added difficulty there.
Because if you get the touchdown there, you only need to get to like the 35.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors there, and amount of time left, et cetera, et cetera. How if you think the Saints are going to score again, thankfully the Packers defense held up, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But Dad, let's keep moving because we got a lot to talk about. We're already getting long on time, and we're only still on the offense. Some more positives I had to talk about was the young tackles in this game. Going into this week, the Saints edges, Cameron Jordan and Carl Granderson, had 11 pressures each, which would have put both of them at 4th in the league, tied with each other. According to Brad Spielberger of PFF, through the past 2 weeks, Rasheed Walker has 0 pressures allowed on true pass sets, and he's the only tackle in the league with at least 25 true pass sets to have 0 pressures. A true pass set is like non-screens, non-spikes, real dropbacks, stuff like that. But yeah, so very impressed with what Walker and Tom were able to do to get today. I didn't think they let Jordan and Granderson take over the game much at all. They protected Love pretty well, only allowed 1 sack, 11 pressures total on the day for Love, and those aren't even just all like those aren't even pressures that were earned by the offensive line. Those are ones that were also just on blitzes and stuff. So yeah, I think a great day for the tackles in particular. The interior struggled at times, but and the run blocking wasn't great from anyone today, which we'll talk about. But the pass protection from the young tackles was excellent today. Excellent. Or yesterday, I'll say.
This week. Or last week. Nope, still this week.
Yeah. Depends how you want to count it, doesn't it? But yeah, no, I thought the line impressed.
It's the weekend. It's both the back end and the front end of the week. All mashed together.
Yeah. But so, yeah, that was my next positive. Dad, anything more positives you wanted on the offense? I have one more. And we could talk about negatives next if you'd like.
So I had basically, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, Love's performance in the hurry-up offense overall. I went through and calculated what his QB rating would have been. I used put in the numbers for the last 4 possessions to calculate it on Pro Football Reference. and so he gets a 97 QB rating. But I couldn't put in like the pass completion for the 2-point conversion, and I don't know what that would do to it.
It's weird how isn't it weird how 2-point conversions don't like get counted anywhere?
Don't
like,
really exist.
It
like
was
Toure still
because,
has no catches.
Yeah, no, he has catch.
Oh, did he get credit with a catch?
Oh, in this game, I thought you meant just in general. I thought when you
meant
said still,
game.
I was like, oh.
No,
yeah.
I meant even though he got the catch in the 2-point conversion, I don't think that counts. Does that count as a catch in the stats?
I don't think it does either. I don't think any of the stats count from 2-point conversion, which, is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Yep, they got 3 targets, no catches for Toure, but he had one of the most important plays of the game.
And nor does it even take into account his the rushing that he had there, where he had the 24-yard run and I think a 5-yard run in those possessions, where he's able to get basically
and
move
these
the
are
ball
these are
really
places
efficiently.
These are places where EPA per play, I think, at times is a better stat because it's taking into account the plays that you're making there, and you can also split it by just like pure dropback and pass attempt. I think there are flaws with every stat, but that's a place where I think EPA is better.
Right, and plus he had the 2 long DPI that contributed to a drive that don't count in any offensive numbers.
Yeah,
but in some ways
but more on that hurry up offense. That anything you wanted to add there, just in general how he performed that whole fourth quarter?
I just thought he was really in command, and less of the. He still had an off target here or there, but a little bit less of that. He was able to hit the receivers when he needed to. He had one that was off target to Musgrave, I think at one point.
Yeah, and
but he's able to still
was
get
the second and 10 on the goal line to Musgrave, where he ends up hitting Jaden Reed on 3rd and 10. Yeah,
right. So he's still able to make, and he's also able to make 3rd down conversions as well with that pass to Reed.
He started slow, but he ended really strong, and in a lot of ways willed the team. And my last positive here, so we can keep this thing on the rails, is
Too late.
I know, right? I liked the way. So I have some comments just on the skill positions. I thought the general split of the targets in this game was good. Dobbs had 12, Musgrave had 8, Reed had 7, and Wicks had 6. I'll be interested to see what happens when Watson hopefully eventually comes back, how that split ends up being. Then some other comments on the skill positions. Some really sick catches by Romeo Dobbs in this game. Some absolutely filthy catches by him and by Jaden Reed in this game. And then the other was Musgrave. I really liked his early involvement. Overall for the game, 8 targets, 6 catches, 49 yards, 2 third down conversions. That's pretty great. And then, Dad, Keyshawn Nixon on offense. Just kind of fun. Just kind of throwing some spice in there.
What Packers player had the highest PFF grade on offense this week?
It's got to be Keyshawn, right? 1 carry, 11 yards. We'll take that. And the thing is, if it's blocked a little better, like Tyrann Mathieu makes a great play to split the 2 lead blockers. And like he doesn't get Nixon, but he slows him up and pushes him to the sideline. If it's blocked up a little better, like he might be going for 30 or 40 or to the house because there was some more space out there to be had.
And you could see as he's coming around the corner there, he's just running the same style as I've got a kickoff return in my hands now. It's time to go.
Here's my question. If he's on the field and you're the defense, who do you think is getting the ball? Who do you think is getting the ball?
It's like, it's not exactly a secret. Like, I can't believe they did, like,
It's like, who do you think is getting the ball here? What are we, like, he's really going to block.
A decoy once.
Yeah, he's really going to block for us on this one. That's definitely why he's out there. No, yeah, I don't.
So, I think I heard somebody suggest this, like, should Keyshawn be running back 2?
We have let's move to the negatives, Dad, because the running game, as good as the end of this game was, the running game is an absolute mess right now, which we kind of hinted at when we talked a little bit about Jordan Love being the leading rusher for the Packers in this game. But Dad, just take it away, because the Packers are really struggling to run the ball pretty much since Aaron Jones went out. And even last year when they had him at times. Like it's a 2-year problem at this point. The run blocking is bad. Dylan looks bad. Take it away.
So the run blocking was even worse than last week's, and the worst of the year so far, with a PFF grade of only 47.4. So we thought it was bad last week, where it had gone down from week 1. And then so as a kind of measure for how good the line is doing and who's to blame for, like, for example, Dylan's bad runs. It's everybody's involved in that. So calculating for PFF, Dylan's yards before contact for our running back. So he's only getting 0.32 yards before contact per attempt. And
was that this game or for the season? That's
for the season. It was a little bit better this week. This week it was 0.45 before contact. Patrick Taylor's only getting 0.2 yards before contact per carry. And this game he got 0.33. And Jones got the most at 1.93. So Dylan and Patrick Taylor, their ranking in the league amongst all running backs so far, 73rd fewest yards before contact for Dylan, and 81st fewest. So I say the 73rd most. So he's like in the most yards per contact. Dylan is 73rd, and Taylor's 81st. So way down the list.
You mean in terms of yards before contact per attempt?
Before contact per attempt. So I think number one is like Devin HN. It's like 10 or something crazy.
That
but
tracks.
But the Packers are getting less than a half a yard before the first contact. So they're being basically met at the line of scrimmage on average every time.
And it tracks when you watch them play, because and we'll talk. I think let's first talk about the line, and then we'll talk about Dylan and Patrick Taylor, because I don't think Dylan's doing like great either, but the line is bad.
No, I've got some notes on that too.
Yeah, and so
I'll Tom and Walker, just continuing on the run blocking, only Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker had even above average run blocking grades for this game. All three interior linemen were below average.
The run blocking has been
40s
bad.
and 50s.
The run blocking has been bad since the entire last year and so far this year. I mean, some of it's on Dylan. If you go to Andy Herman's Twitter, he has a clip essentially where there is just a wide open hole and Dylan doesn't take it. And then there are ones where anytime they seem to run any kind of pitch play, the guy's getting hit 5 yards behind the line every single time. They need to stop running those. Throw those out.
Can we please retire that sweep wide left? It doesn't matter who runs it.
No,
Wilson got buried for a 5-yard loss. Dylan got buried for a 5-yard loss. I think
it's
Taylor.
Never
it's like
blocked.
3 different guys lose like 5 yards.
Ever blocked right. Never ever blocked right.
The 3 times they've run it, there've been 3 unblocked defenders there to bury the ball carrier.
And it's like, are they?
One was Jaden Reed. That's who the other one.
Are they executing it well in practice? Well, the Reed one is different because I think that was an option. That wasn't just a strict like pitch. They're not even running like regular like pitches right at this point at times, where it's like they're just getting so many negative plays because they're just getting blown up at the line. And even when they're not just getting like allowing instant penetration, they're not getting much push either. So it's like, it's bad. But Dad, I'm going to send it back to you to talk a little bit about Dylan versus Taylor, and maybe throw in a little bit, because I know we're going to talk about and things that made us think the running back pitch count. Throw that in too, because in this game we saw that Patrick Taylor got steadily as the game went along more work than Dylan in a lot of ways. And Matt LaFleur said that was just a product of how the game was going and hurry up. You believe what you want to believe. It definitely seemed like they were just kind of feeling like Taylor gave him a better chance to win at that point. And something to keep in mind is that Patrick Taylor has used up his 3 call-ups from the practice squad. So if they want to use him again this week, they're going to need to add him to the active roster. But Dad, Patrick Taylor and A.J. Dillon, talk about it a little bit. Talk about what Dillon is struggling with numbers-wise. Go on.
Yeah, so
give it to me straight. Give it to me straight.
So Taylor, this game just looks like he's better. And so they're saying he's better in the hurry up. They want to use him in hurry up. He's out, in addition to the both being kind of suffering from running into contact. So maybe you could say, like, well, the reason Dylan's running into contact is not because there's no holes open for him, because he just runs into Guara, runs into offensive linemen. But I guess does contact with your own teammate count?
I don't believe so. No, not in these stats.
Yards before contact.
But missing the hole could lead to a poor yards before contact.
Oh yeah,
but the point is neither. But the point is neither of them are having it blocked well for them.
No, but when it comes to yards after contact, Dillon is, in addition to being like 73rd in yards before contact, he's 96th in the league in yards after contact per attempt. And Taylor with like 2.38, and Taylor is 57th, so still not great, but substantially better with 3 yards after contact per attempt.
Yeah, I mean currently,
and Taylor's also
Dillon is currently averaging for the season 2.7 yards per attempt. Yeah. That's wretched. That's really bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. We talk
really,
about
really
that.
bad.
You know, yeah, and I don't know why he seems to have gotten worse every year of his career so far. He started off better, and he's been being less efficient, less productive with every year. But yeah, and Taylor's, well, there's that, doesn't have many snaps in like pass blocking snaps, but he has given up a sack. So his blocking grade is also not as good as Taylor's.
But pretty much that whole fourth quarter, they were going with Taylor out there. And he did mess up on the fourth down, which I'll talk about in a second, where unclear if he either stopped running or Love and him weren't on the same page or Love overthrew him. But whichever way, like they should have had a conversion there, and one of them didn't execute. But then he also had some pretty big like third down conversions. They were using him in the pass game out wide, and he was getting first downs. Like he was making some plays out there that Dillon has so far this year not made. And anything more you want to add on there, because I feel like it's almost like we talked a little bit about going into this game. It's like we wanted to see a more even split between Dillon and the next 2 running backs on the list. Emmanuel Wilson didn't wow me at all in this game. He was fine. He seemed a little tentative, hitting his holes a little bit, and it felt like he wasn't running like full bore, I guess. But Patrick Taylor had a good game, and I think I wouldn't hate to see more of him getting some of those running back snaps as long as Jones is out, and maybe even after Jones is back. We'll see. Dad, anything more you wanted to add on
I would
the performance of the running backs?
One thing, I felt like actually early on in the game.
I felt like early on, I agree with what you're going to say, I think.
Dillon was looking good.
Yes. The first bit of the game, he was looking better than he had the weeks 1 and 2. And then it just kind of, he had like 2 or 3 nice runs where he was hitting the hole with some fury. He looked like he was like being very decisive.
Yeah,
he looked like he had more burst than he'd had.
8 yards, 7 yards.
More burst than he'd had in years.
Yeah. And then it just kind of, then there wasn't anything more.
It fizzled out for him.
Yeah,
and part of it, I think, is the blocking.
That happened.
Yeah.
He's almost like, he's the kind of runner where you have to get him past the first guy.
But the thing is, you say that, but he can't make a guy in the open field miss either. So
no, but by that time he's got a momentum and he's gonna.
No, I know. He's better. He's better when you can get him up to speed. But every running back is better when you can get them up to speed and have an open hole for them. So it's like if he's not, because he's not, even when it's blocked for him, he's not going to make an explosive play. He's never going to give you 15 or 20 yards, even if it's a massive hole. The best is like if there's a medium-sized hole, he'll get you 8 to 10 yards because he can drag guys from 6 yards to the 10-yard mark. But like,
and that's what he was doing a little bit in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, but so when it's perfectly blocked up for you, you're going to give us 9 yards. Is pretty much what we're getting out of Dillon right now. Because even when he looked good at the beginning of the game, and I agree he looked good, he looked more spry than he had the first 2 weeks. It's still not like is the juice worth the squeeze?
He's not a home run hitter.
But like, is the juice worth the squeeze? So if it's blocked up poorly, you're not going to get anything. If it's blocked up well, you're going to get 10 yards. You're never going to have a carry more than 15. Is it worth it? Like, is that worth it? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not willing to say the book is written on Dillon yet, but it's been really bad. It's been really bad. But anyway, more negatives.
So here's the thing. So I just got to pull this up right now. His long carry every year, rookie year, a long of 30. Second year, a long of 36. Last year, a long of 27. And so far this year, a long of 14.
I think that was in this game because going into this game, he had a long of 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and he had a really nice third down conversion on a little dump off, like screen left early in the game. where it
think
was a
that
3rd and
one
10, and
may
they
have
ran a screen.
actually
They
counted as a run.
Okay.
That's, I think, his
was probably the
14-yard run.
14-yarder.
Because it was actually thrown behind him. But it was thrown backwards, and so it counted as a run, and that's the 14-yard run.
But that was a nice play. That was very good. But like,
yeah,
I mean,
he wove through some of the defenders and ran the last like 3 over to gain some extra yards.
But even the good plays like aren't particularly. Even his best plays are like good. They're like, it's like, wow, that's a good play. But like, I don't know. We could talk about Dylan all day, though, Dad. My next negative for the Packers offense was the 4th down execution. Actually, before I talk about the 4th down, can we talk about penalties? Can we talk about penalties in this game?
That's one of my negatives, too. I just have
My
the four offensive line penalties, especially at the beginning of the game. It was driving me bonkers.
So per Zach Cruz, the Packers had a penalty on their first 6 non-kneel down drives. So on each of their first 6 drives, it was in some ways affected by a penalty. And it's a bad problem all over the place, not just on offense. So according to NFLpenalties.com, which tracks like number of flags thrown, number of penalties accepted, et cetera, the Packers have had 33 total flags against them, which is the most in the league. And then according to PFF, which splits them by offense, defense, and special teams.
Most in the league.
Yeah, most in the league.
I knew it was
They're averaging
bad.
11 a game. According to PFF, this doesn't count, and PFF doesn't count team penalties. I think these are just like on the individual, and doesn't count declined, I don't believe. But they have 14 penalties on offense, 10 penalties on defense, and 7 penalties on special teams. And I'll get in a big rant on special teams later. But the penalties pretty much just routinely screwed them on drives the whole first half. I mean, the first play of the game, it's 1st and 25. And that was just emblematic of the entire first half. They went false start to open the game. And that was like, that's the first half. You just needed to watch that one play. That's how the first half went for the Packers offense. You can just skip the rest.
They had like 6 penalties in the first quarter or something. It was racking up fast. And misalignment, holding, false starts.
They're averaging over, like, I think 9 accepted penalties per game, which is second. And Carolina's first. The league leader last year was 6.8 or something like that. It's, like, absurd how many penalties they have in this game for a team that, like, I would say otherwise is fairly well coached at times. But, Dad, that was my next negative. And then the one after that, since we need to keep moving through this, was the 4th down execution. I mean, the first 4th down, I can't even explain it with words. Go watch it. They hand off right. Number one, why is Emmanuel Wilson the one running that play who is your least experienced running back? So they run it right. Emmanuel Wilson throws it across the field back to Jordan Love, and it's wide open. He's going to throw it down the left sideline for a touchdown pretty much. But the ball bounces to him, and Jordan Love has to do the splits. And I think if I had done that, I would have killed both my knees if I had done that.
I'm so happy he didn't hurt himself. But the thing is, the overall design of the play was good.
Oh, the design is excellent. But why is Emmanuel Wilson
wide open?
But why are you running it with your least experienced running back? Where is the logic there?
Deception? Deception?
You're deceiving yourself. Because to think that a guy
this is a case of LaFleur getting a little too cute sometimes.
I don't even know if it's too cute. I don't know if that's LaFleur, though.
Clever.
Because I don't know if that's LaFleur, because it's usually the position coaches who decide like when to rotate in players.
Well, this is something that the Packers have done for a number of years, where
I don't think it's
they're being a little bit too smart.
I don't think it's a too cute thing at all, because like you said, the play design was right. The play design was perfect. The execution was bad. The players they put in that position were not the right players
I'm talking
to
about
put.
Being a little bit too cute. They're trying to
see. I don't think
be
that's
a little
too
too smart
thing.
by picking.
I don't think they're trying to be. No,
no?
I don't think they're trying to be too cute doing it.
Then what excuse do you have for them putting
I think that's
Wilson
just
in there? Then
a complete overlooking error, because I don't think they're doing it with a set plan in mind. Like, because Wilson's in. You really think if Dillon's in, they're going to be like, you really got to watch for the throwback here because A.J. Dillon's in. Like with him in, it's way more likely they do that than with Wilson. No one is. It doesn't matter who you put back there. No one is expecting you to do a throwback to the quarterback there. No one in their right mind is expecting that. And so to me, it's just oversight. I don't understand. Like you're not checking before you run the play that you have the personnel out there that's the most likely to complete the pass. And then the other fourth down, like we already talked about, Love and Taylor are not on the same page. They go 1 of 3 on fourth down today, and it ends up leading to, what it probably could have been a more convincing win. And I'm not going to complain about the win they had, but if we're saying negatives, fourth down execution is definitely a negative for me there.
Yeah, and I don't know who was at fault on that one to Taylor, because he kind of sits down. It looks to me like he's sitting down on the route, not that he's just stopping running. And Love is expecting him to keep running downfield.
And the thing is, like, he sits down and he is open, and it was only like 2 yards for a first down. So it's like, I see why he's sitting down. He's wide open at the first down yard, like at the first down marker, like. I don't know. It's tough. It's impossible to know who's at fault there. But general execution, someone messed up. But that was my next negative. Dad, what did you have for your last negative for that one?
So one other thing is, especially showed up through the middle of the game, is the young receivers' strength at the catch point. So according to Zach Cruz on Twitter, the Packers were just 3 of 13 in contested catch situations in this game, and are just 5 of 22 on the season. And you can see that come up where the ball gets knocked out.
I thought that Toure was
contact.
I thought Toure was the biggest culprit of this today. It felt like the ball hit his hands. Like I know it's tough catches, but like the ball hit his hands like multiple times where he just didn't come up with it, and I was like, just fight a little harder, man. Like you're right there.
Yeah, and it also happened to Reed and
Heath.
Dobbs
it happened to Malik Heath once. It happened
Heath
to
twice,
yeah.
maybe.
If they wanted to like just scrap the Heath and Toure snaps and give all those snaps to Wicks.
Into Wicks.
Wicks looks
like a player.
Wicks looks good. Wicks looks much better than them. No offense to them, but like Wicks looks much better than them. But yeah, they're having trouble. They're young. I'm not too worried about it, but it's definitely like an interesting stat because 3 of 13 is bad. That's like not good. Please, like 50-50. Like make a play on the ball. Your hands should be better than the DBs. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, yes, your hands should be better. That's why they're DBs.
Yeah, exactly. But my final negative was, I thought Jordan Love was really awesome in the fourth quarter. Showed a lot of poise and moxie, but for stretches of the game, he definitely struggled with accuracy, especially on the deep ball. He missed Musgrave badly up the seam early. I don't think it was maybe not necessarily as bad as it looked because I think Musgrave kind of flattened out the route a little bit, but he still would have missed him. It's like still a miss on an open guy like running downfield is not good. He underthrew a few shots down the sideline. And then, just general advanced stats don't love Love's performance. I do think like they obviously don't take into account the context of missing half your line, missing your best weapons, having no run game to support you. Like those are all, and like just your team committing a billion penalties and putting you behind the sticks at every turn. But 15th in EPA per play. This is per RBSDM.com. 15th in success rate, last among qualifying quarterbacks in completion percentage, third to last in completion percentage over expectation. Just
now, is that for the season? Is that for the season or just this week?
Just this week.
Because his completion percentage over expectation has been poor all season.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing for him is like improving, hitting some of the gimmies and hitting some of the open guys because some of the flashes are insane. Like he's throwing some crazy throws. The fact that he was able to battle this team back and lead this team back is awesome. But you just got to, just the next step is hitting some of those easy ones. But that's the last thing we had to say about the offense. We talked about the offense for a lot of time. There was a lot to say. Anything more you want to add, or should we move on to the defense?
Let's move on to the defense. Give them a little bit of shine.
Yeah, a little bit of shine, and maybe a little bit of not shine. Do you want to start with positives or negatives? What do you want to start with here? Remember, we're ending on special teams, so we're ending negative either way, unfortunately, because the special teams is god awful. Yeah. But anyway, defense.
So I guess I'll start with should we start with positives? You know what? I'm going to start with the negatives. We're going to start with the negatives, then go to positives. So one of the bad things I had, and actually don't have that much bad on defense, but that last drive, letting them march down the field so easily in 47 yards in 1 minute and 46 seconds in 7
That's
plays
bad.
to get into, and they got into field goal range in only 4 plays. I mean, 7 plays because they were like basically trying to kill some more of the clock by running those last 3 plays. So it's like 4 plays to get into field goal range is the part that was really disheartening.
It's not good. It's not good at all. To me, though, the reason they were able to move it down that far is because you have Corey Ballantyne and Chris Olave, which is a mismatch. But the reason you have Corey Ballantyne and Chris Olave is because you're missing like half of your corners. So to me, like there's a little accident forgiveness there.
Ballantyne had been in for like I think the whole second half. So he'd
But
actually. You should give him a few props, though. So he's saying, yeah.
No, I'm not criticizing him. I'm saying the fact that they're down to their. Yes, a freak play. Like you essentially had an uncoverable.
On that play.
You essentially had an uncoverable play on your 6th corner versus a top, I would say 10 to 12 like receiver in the league. Like to me, like that's why I'm like it is a negative because like you can't do that. You can't after your offense and the defense like not allowing any points in the second half, which is a major positive. And then like you fought so hard to get this lead and then you just crumble. The second you really need to stop, you crumble. But at the same time, it's like you're working with scraps on the back end there. Like you already have major question marks at safety. And then you're back down to like you're losing most of your corners. To me, it's like, yeah, that's a negative, but it's hard for me to get too mad, but also at the same time, if they had lost this game, I would have been very mad, I'm sure. So it's a bit of no harm, no foul, I guess, in some ways. But I agree. You can't let them just drive into field goal range, especially like a 46-yard field goal in a minute when you just need one stop to win the game, and it worked out. But yeah, my first negative for the defense, did you want to add anything there?
No, why don't you go go ahead.
Yeah, I think mine was just like they did get sacks in this game, and I thought the D-line played really well against the run, specifically. They didn't have that many pressures in this game, which I thought was kind of interesting, and part of it was probably a time to throw issue. But we talked about pregame that the Saints' offensive line was not very good, and I thought it was interesting that week 1, the Packers had 36 pressures on 49 dropbacks. Week 2, the Packers had 25 pressures on 38 dropbacks. And then this week, that's all the way down to 13 pressures on 38 dropbacks, which is not very much. And not very much, especially when you consider that the Saints offensive line has not been playing very well. And, most of that was just Rashan Gary being a freak of nature, which we'll talk about in a second. But like, I think that's a negative for me is that you weren't able to get as much pressure. I did still think the D-line played well at times. And then the others, like early on, I felt like they were giving up a lot of extra yards on checkdowns. Especially like when the Saints were scoring, it was like they were just having checkdowns go for like 10 yards. Like Chris Olave on an early 2nd and 9 is 12 yards because they're actually not lined up right. Carrington Valentine is sprinting across the field to get to the right side of the field, and they run a play as he's like getting in position. And then Tony Jones goes for 8 yards on a dump off to the flat on a 3rd down conversion because Quay and Rasul get put into conflict and it's not communicated who has like the flat there. And then later Juwan Jones gets like 7 yards on like a 2nd and 11 and makes it 3rd and manageable or something. I think that was what it was. But yeah, so like those are my negatives for the defense. I think overall the defense had like a really solid game. But I do feel like I'm nitpicking
they only
a little bit
gave
looking
up
for negatives. 10 points.
The defense only gave up 10 points.
Yeah.
So that's really an excellent game overall.
Yeah, because
so we're nitpicking
the
a
team
little
gave
bit.
up. Yeah, the team gave up 17. 7 of those were on a Rashid Shaheed punt return touchdown, where the special teams were just totally out to lunch. Like I don't know what they were doing, but I mean, Dallin Levitt, I am incensed because this is your only job, and you messed up twice on that play. I'm pretty sure. But we'll talk about special teams in a bit. Dad, let's move to positives, or did you have any other negatives?
You want to
on
just
the
finish that
defense?
special teams since we've already started the rant? Might as
No,
well. Then go
I have so much more to say about the special teams, and I will talk about it at the end. I have problems with the special teams.
So, starting off with that, I'm going to just talk about the 4th quarter but overall the defense played well the whole game, but they basically gave them a chance to make the comeback by severely restricting the amount of time that New Orleans possessed the ball. After they failed to get that 4th down conversion, and I was worried, like, oh, well, they're going to just run out of time now. The Green Bay defense, in the next 3 drives, 3 plays, 8 yards, 2 minutes, 8 seconds. 5 plays, 20 yards, 2 minutes, 40 seconds. 3 plays, 7 yards, a minute 32. So over 3 drives, they only had 7 minutes. Was that less than 7 minutes? 7 minutes?
Around 7. We can say around 7 minutes. But that's exceptional.
It's kind of insane that they gave the offense enough time.
Yes, there is the caveat that Derek Carr was knocked out of this game at the start of the third quarter. But Jameis Winston's probably the best backup in the league, right? Like, or if he's not the best, he's a top 2 or top 3. Like, Jameis Winston, I'm sure the Jets would be ecstatic if Jameis Winston was their starting quarterback. Like, he's not a slouch is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he was doing that much worse than Carr was for a lot of the game. When Carr had a lot of time, he did okay, but he didn't have a whole lot of time when Gary was on the field.
No, it did not. And, do you want to talk a little bit about Gary? Because, I mean, man, what a beast.
I could just jump in. Like, Rashan Gary is him, as they say.
He
3 sacks.
Bullying Ryan Ramczyk, who's an all-pro right tackle. The only good line. Yep. I don't know why you're lining him up on their only good lineman. I don't know why. Maybe he likes the challenge. But it worked, so I'm not going to question it.
And they put an extra lineman on his side one time, too. And he abused that guy.
The thing is, they put an extra lineman over on his side, but only the extra lineman blocked him. Like, blocked him. Like Ramczyk's blocking someone else. So essentially, you just brought in your 6th lineman as a one-on-one matchup for Gary, which, just great game planning.
That was actually kind of amusing. But yeah, so three sacks and another hit on only 23 snaps. Only 20 of them were pass rushing.
He had he had half their pressures alone, just him. I think he had 5 pressures, and he
played less than half of the snaps.
Yeah,
he played 23 of their 61 defensive snaps,
and he 3 sacks on the day. One of them knocks Derek Carr out of the game. It sounds like that injury's not as bad as we feared, so that's good for him. But he did leave with a shoulder injury. But even when Carr was in there, I mean, I didn't think. Like, he was causing havoc. The whole line was causing them havoc. I mean, one of my positives is the Packers' third down defense, and that kind of ties into this pass rush idea because I think 2 of Gary's sacks were on third down, and then the other sack they had, Kenny Clark, his was also on third down on the first drive. But they held the Saints to 4 of 14 on third downs and 3 of 8 with Carr back there. So not great with just Carr back there either. It wasn't just Jameis went 1 of 6, but Carr went 3 of 8. It's not great. And that's compared to the Saints. They went 7 of 16 against Tennessee on third down and 7 of 16 against Carolina. And those are some pretty strong defenses too. So you essentially outperformed 2 very, very good defenses in Tennessee and Carolina in terms of getting the Saints off the field on third down. There's nothing to sniff at. Is that a phrase? Nothing to sniff at? Nothing to sneeze at. Nothing to sneeze at. Nothing to sneeze at.
So maybe if you sniff at it, it's going to make you sneeze.
Yeah, but no, that was so my positive. Is the third down defense was very good for the Packers in this game.
Yeah, and overall they looked like a high quality defense. And I think was that the lowest point total for the Saints offense?
No, I don't think so. Oh, 10? Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. It would have to be, huh? Because they had, 16 against the Titans? It was 16-15. It was a weird
1-point win.
Yeah. Man, they're playing a lot of close games, huh? But, yeah. Did you have another positive? I could keep going off of. My other one is the D-line played especially well against the run, held the Saints to under 4 yards per carry. PFF credited them with 12 stops and 5 tackle for loss. It felt like they were really handling the Saints up front. On the back end, despite having mostly backups, they kept everything in front of them. According to Next Gen Stats, Carr only attempted 2 passes beyond 10 yards. And that's honestly also shout out to Joe Barry, I was going to say, because he's coaching around some major deficiencies on that back end. No Jair, no Valentine, still no Stokes, against probably one of the best receiver trios in the league, where Michael Thomas is the 3rd best receiver there. I think Rashid Shaheed is really, really good in my opinion.
They managed to shut Shaheed out in receptions.
Yeah, it's just...
And it's very interesting about the deep pass because Carr had actually, I think, been leading the league in average depth of target coming into this game. So the fact that they were able to do so much to limit the deep shots is because both Olave and Shaheed are fully capable of catching some deep balls.
Yeah, I mean, the only deep ball they hit was just like Olave making insane plays, like the one-hander he had at the end of the first half, which also shout at the Packers for holding them to a field goal there, because that's huge too.
Yes, where he caught it, what he catch it, like the 5 or 7 or somewhere around there. That,
what a freak
where
catch. He's so
they're
good.
counting his steps. Like, I'm not sure if he got his steps, got all his feet in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, he's still going.
But no,
Yeah, that was
and
an amazing
so,
play.
Those are my main positives from the defense, Dad. Did you have anything else you wanted to add there on defense, or should we rant about special
Well, the one I
teams?
should add that I put it on my made us think, but it's actually more of a positive. It's like the safeties are playing better than I had hoped for this year.
Savage especially. Savage is actually playing good, but Ford was their highest graded player per PFF.
Yeah, he had 7 tackles this week with no misses, and last week he had 8 tackles with no misses. And his NFL rating thrown into his coverage is only 39.6 the last 2 games. And then Savage is, for this year so far, he's got the best run defense grade of his career, the best tackling grade of his career, and his best coverage grade since 2020.
Yeah, he's turned it around so far.
Our safeties have been better than I think anybody was predicting they would be on the offense so far this year.
We haven't played any super dynamic quarterbacks is the only thing. So I'm going to reserve I'm going to wait on that one, but they're playing great. The only thing with Rudy Ford though is man, he should have had 2 picks. There's the prayer that Derek Carr threw up that I think I saw someone tweet Rudy Ford just made the most unathletic play I've ever seen in my entire life from a safety, where he kind of just flails at it. And then on the last drive, he really should have picked. He should have picked that.
He cuts in front of him.
That thing.
It's why? When it happened, it's why are you just batting at that ball? Don't knock it down.
I said,
house that thing.
That, Rudy. Pick that. Just fall over and pick it. Oh man, no! I was yelling because they were already in field goal range at that point. I was like, you gotta pick that. The game is on the line. But it worked out, so it's fine. And he was their highest graded player for PFF, so that's fine. But yeah, no, the safety play has definitely been. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's it's going well so far. I'm going to keep my eye on it. I don't trust it yet, but it's been better than expected.
Did you have anything that made you think? One thing about it is, what is the cornerback room going to look like on Thursday?
Oh man,
in terms of things to think about. That's something we could maybe go into in our preview show, but just something whoa. You had something.
That's
maybe
a good point. Mine was this was something that Justice Mosqueda pointed out in Acme Packing Company, and I wanted to talk about it here and see what you thought. But the thing that made me think was the D-line snap counts. So week 1, Colby Wooden had 36 snaps while Carl Brooks had 29. Week 2, Colby Wooden had 36 snaps while Carl Brooks had 23. But then this week, Wooden saw his snaps cut all the way down to 10 while Carl Brooks had 28 snaps. So Carl Brooks ahead of Colby Wooden on the depth chart now? Question mark? What do you think, Dad?
It seems like it, and it does seem like Wooden was having a lot of trouble last week in run defense.
Yeah, he makes some nice
Brooks
splash plays.
Even though,
I was gonna say Wooden makes some nice splash plays where he'll be in the backfield, he'll knife through, but then there will be plays where he's just too small and he's just getting blown off the line. And it's not just him is the thing, but I think they just maybe feel more comfortable with Carl Brooks' size, defending the run, I guess.
Which, it was that he's doing maybe a better job defending the run, even though he's sort of made his hay as in college as a pass rusher.
Pass rusher, yeah. It's kind of funny. But the other thing is, more than anything, adjustments are good. Changing things when the current status quo is not working. When you're getting demolished against the run and you gave up 80 carry and Matt LaFleur's pissed all week that y'all were getting gashed in the run game, made a change. We did something different, and it worked a little bit. Not that the Saints are some world beaters on the ground, but it worked a little bit. So, shout out to the defensive coaching staff. That was some good changes. That made me think, though, Dad, anything else on the defense, or should we move to the special teams where I can proceed to claw my eyes out for the entertainment of our listeners?
The unspecial.
Yeah, the special teams, the we fence. I'm going to go on a little rant here. Rich Bisaccia.
I only have the one, just No.
I said I'm going to go on. I said I'm going to go on a rant here.
Go on your full rant. I cede the floor.
So the Packers gave up 17 points in this game. 7 of those 17 were on a Rashid Shaheed punt return touchdown. Rich Bisaccia is the highest paid special teams coordinator in the league. This offseason, he was promoted to assistant head coach of the team. He has a whole set of players that he has brought over that are specifically there for special teams. Dallin Levitt, Eric Wilson, Anderson, who doesn't even play. I'm not even really sure what he does here, but he's never active, but they brought him in for special teams. Keyshawn Nixon, he has him too, although his special teams role has kind of declined as he's become more important to the defense. But another, we're bringing in Bisaccia-specific guys. The Packers, per PFF, are currently the third worst special teams unit in the league. They have had seven special teams penalties in the league on the year, which is tied for most in the league. And we talked about the whole team's getting a lot of penalties. Like, they're already the most flagged team in the league. It's a young team. We talked about this going into the year. But last year, according to NFLpenalties.com, which tracks this thing, despite having the seventh fewest total penalties in the league, they had the third most special teams penalties last year too. So if you're paying this guy record money, you're giving him promotion so he's more involved in decisions. Like Dallin Levitt, who you brought in, specifically, who is your guy, who can't actually play safety. He's only there to play special teams. To me, and I'm not a full expert on this, so this is just one person's opinion. To me, he blows the lane twice on the punt return. He breaks inside when his lane is outside right, and that's where Rashid Shaheed initially finds the gap. And then as he's tracking back, he tracks back way too hard, loses contain again, gets broken, and Rashid Shaheed breaks to the inside, and instead of already a negative 30, probably a 30 to 40 yard punt return allowed, it's a touchdown. Because Dallin Levitt messes up twice, in my opinion, is how I saw the play from the overhead all 22 angle. And I mean, these are your guys. You're that highly paid. What are we doing? What are we doing? The only positive you can say is, knock on wood, for right now, the kicking has been good. But other than that, you're paying him, and this was, I think, even more ironically, going against the special teams coordinator that you didn't hire, that Matt LaFleur wanted to hire, Darren Rizzi. I think his name is Darren, but his last name is Rizzi. And the front office or the ownership, not ownership, but Mark Murphy, the head of the group. I can't believe I said ownership. I hate that. But they balked at essentially paying him like the highest paid special teams coordinator in the league, and that's why you didn't have Rizzi. It only takes you losing a playoff game to be willing to commit that amount of money to a special teams coordinator, apparently. But the one you picked, is he really worth the money? We don't have a good special teams. Am I crazy? What do you think, Dad? I've ranted enough.
Yeah, this is the thing. Last year's okay, we've improved a little bit. And the general consensus that I could hear was that, it probably takes more than 1 year to fix what was one of the worst special team units of the last 20 years.
No, of all time. You can say of all time.
I was tempted, but then I decided to tone it down.
You can say of all time. It lost you a playoff game. You can say of all time. You lost.
You're so bad
16...
that one of the other.
Well, do you remember
the other bad special teams from that year took you, and beat you up behind the woodshed?
Well, I mean, do you remember the Bears game, the second one? They lost 16 expected points on special teams alone or something insane like that. When they gave up 4 million-yard returns to whoever the Bears kick returner was at the time. Guy who used to play for the Dolphins. I'm having trouble remembering his name. But But the point is, the special teams. No, it wasn't. The special teams was really, really, really bad 2 years ago, which allowed us to be okay, they're slightly below average this year. That's awesome. But then this year, it's the same mistakes, but you're paying way more for it. What are we doing? I know it's early. and I know the kicking. The kicking operation has been good, but what more needs to be done? And I understand that he's missing players on the special teams unit too. As people get injured and people get pushed into starting positions, they're not able to play as much special teams. You're losing players there too. But the guys who are making mistakes are Dallin Levitt and guys who are always there, and the guys who are only there to play teams. I don't get it. Whatever.
Yeah,
I'm mad. I'm upset. I'm annoyed.
And Ford is another guy who was Ford and Nixon were both brought in primarily as special
Yeah, but
teams
now they're
players.
starting.
And they were really good.
secondary guys.
They're really good gunners, and now I don't think they're available for that.
Well, and then you lose Valentine, who's also a gunner for you on teams. You lose. I think Lucas Van Ness was doing some was doing some snaps on teams as well.
Lost Tyler Davis before the season started.
Yeah, I understand that but every unit is dealing with a short deck. The defense doesn't have all their guys. The offense doesn't have all their guys. What is team's excuse? Like, you committed 7 penalties. Like, I'm sure if we went, like, yes, the offense and defense have more, but they're also playing a lot more snaps. So I think on a penalty per snap basis, like, you're probably the worst unit because they had like a hold in this game. They had the delay of game in the last game that essentially cost them the game. I mean, it boggles the mind. It boggles the mind. It's not fun. I'm not a fan of it. But Dad, any more thoughts on special teams? Because it's not.
I think
it's
that's
not
enough.
good.
We won this game.
It's not good. It's not good enough. And yeah, we won this game.
Let's get the taste of special teams out of our mouth.
That's true.
And move on to something more fun. Player of the game.
Yes, player of the game. Hit us with it.
I went Rashan Gary because I think he basically kept the Packers in this game when the offense was sputtering. Looking like one of the best pass rushers in the league. He's number 1 in pressure percentage among edge rushers with more than 10 snaps. And he got 3 sacks this week, despite playing fewer than half. And I think his disruption of the Saints offense kept the Packers in the game.
100% agree. My player of the game is Jordan Love. It wasn't pretty for a lot of the game, but when it came down to the fourth quarter, he kind of just willed the Packers to win this game in some ways. Crunch time.
And this is the first time you really saw it. Like, this is what was missing last week that people wanted to see. And this week he showed it in spades in multiple possessions. And
without your all-pro left tackle, without your Pro Bowl left guard, without your Pro Bowl running back, without your best receiver, and like to just make it work. He just made it against a top 10, top 5 defense, against a really good defense.
Toughest defense they played so far this year.
Yeah, and I mean, in your home opener, like what a great story. Like what a great game. I'm back to being happy about this game. But anyway, just a really gutsy win from the Packers. Thanks so much for listening to this breakdown. Sorry if we went a little long. We got a little passionate about a couple things. We got a little heated about a couple of things. But thank you so much for listening. We'll be doing our pregame on Wednesday for the Packers' Thursday night game against the Lions in Lambeau. Excited to talk about it. Division game. Winner's going to be on top of the NFC North. A lot to play for. Some tiebreakers possibly. But excited to see you then. Thanks again for listening. And until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.